Hello, welcome to Quackalope. Thank you for joining us today. We are giving you a unboxing
of Cloudspire by Chip Theory Games.
A little bit closer to an overview video. Now, I know we're a little bit late to the punch here. This game has been out for a little while, and I, sort of like a dummy, ordered all of my extra upgraded components and mechanics and stuff that I want to open on camera together alongside my Too Many Bones expansion.
Why would you do that?
So instead of them coming in, I need to never do double wave shipping because I would have had this like 6 months ago.
You would have, yes.
If I didn't just combine them and they all arrived together in a beautiful little package. Now, you own this game.
I do.
So I have had the chance to sit down and play yours. So this will be a beautiful unboxing video like we do here on the channel, but also a nice mix, more of an overview, showing off how the game looks as it's set up and talking about how different factions and mechanics work as we pull it out.
And if you haven't heard of Cloudspire before, this is a strategy-based game.
You almost got the name of the game right there.
Cloudspire.
You said Splashspire.
Well, that's the correct pronunciation.
Oh, great.
So Cloudspire is a strategy board game that's heavily inspired by tower defense games and MOBA games. And MOBA games are multiplayer online battle arena games, like things like League of Legends, etc. And the reason why that is because all players that are playing here, this is a competitive, solo, and cooperative game. They're all sending out minions to try and make it to the base of another player in order to take them down.
Marching down this gridded pathway with certain movement and attack restrictions, they can kind of bunch up together. You're controlling your heroes, so you have a little bit of decision when it comes to purposeful movement, but then mostly you're trying to chain and set up a series of events that result a few turns later in you taking over or gaining ground and taking down the other player's home base.
Yeah, and Cloudspire is fascinating because it includes so many types of different mechanisms. There's a little bit of tiling, there's variable player powers, there's asymmetric factions, there's action queue allotments.
Sure.
There's so many. Oh, and there's also, what would we call this? Kind of like army management, because you're trying to build out your units every round.
Now, we primarily have played two-player head-to-head while working our way through the mechanics of this game. We both find it absolutely fascinating. This is a game that replicates or does its best to replicate the depth and complexity in a lot of the video games that I love. You know, the tower defense video games is kind of where my heart lies. And so I love the idea of creating a sequence of events and watching them unfold throughout the game. That being said, I have heard really good things from, specifically, no pun included, about the solo experience of this. And so they actually have made me really intrigued by that solo puzzle, by figuring out the gears that you can turn against an automated or an AI system. So,
and also the cooperative elements are fantastic as well.
That's sort of the same. Cooperative and solo I see as the same category of play. It's just normally I don't prefer friends. Oh, you got like a string, right?
What, there?
Yep. Just.
What are you doing?
What? Either way,
what the hell? You're not keeping that on camera.
If you're unfamiliar with Quackalope, thank you for joining us. We do a whole lot of board game stuff, so like if you like that, stay tuned. There's a button.
Like, comment, subscribe, share, things, doing the thing on at the bottom. Okay, we're actually going to start unboxing Cloudspire now. So first thing we do is cut a seam, and then we are respectfully quiet as we open it. Wow, that was the fastest. Oh, okay, there's still some. There was still a little bit there, but now we are ready to open up this behemoth of a game.
High above the earth lies the floating realm of Ankar.
I will allow you this.
Held in the sky by powerful energy known only as the Source, the islands of Ankar have existed in peace for centuries.
However, as the various factions of Ankar have used and abused the Source, the world has been thrown out of balance. The islands of Ankar, historically separate from each other, have now crashed together in an event Ankarians refer to, the Joining.
Cloudspire places you in command of one of these unique factions. Assume control of your faction's fortress, heroes, minions, and defensive spires to assert your faction's dominance over Ankar.
Pom pom pom.
Now, you might be confused as to why we're opening the second biggest box. Well,
this is actually the game.
This is the game.
We'll show you what that other box holds.
These are the
soon.
expansions. This is the book I'm going to read to you in just a moment. And this
are minis.
Oh, minis.
Beautiful minis of the spires that you just heard about.
Much box things to cover.
So if you've never seen a Chip Theory game before,
you don't
get
need
ready.
To say it. Yeah, leave it alone.
Leave it alone.
Everyone talks about it.
What? It's the truth.
It's all right.
It's all right. You're gonna see neoprene inside the box. You're gonna see chips. That's where the name exists. And you're also gonna see plastic cards. I know, unheard of, right? Yeah, relics. We got, what is this over here? We got our event cards.
So talk a little bit about how events and relics work throughout the course of the game, since we pulled them out.
There's different ways that you can implement these. It's a little bit of a modular system, but basically throughout the game experience, in order to add a little bit of variance and unpredictability, events are going to come in to change up the regular formula of whatever's happening.
Now, these could be massive,
or they could be very little.
And some of them I removed from the game.
Exactly.
Specifically, the very first time we played, we had something. I had built my entire strategy around the tower defense element of the game, and then we got a card that said, screw that. They're all gone. And I thought to myself, well, golly gee.
They can be very swingy, so it depends on how you like to play. And then the relics.
That's the nice thing. They can be inserted, or they're not required. It's up to you.
That's what I meant, that it's modular. And then the relics are different elements that you're going to find across the board if you go to specific places in order to emphasize or make stronger certain ability. They're like basically quick play actions that'll completely transform the game at that point.
So here we have
the faction boards.
Factions. So the Hares, we have the Grove Tenders, we have the Cloudspire general reference board, and we have the Brawwin.
And the Narora, which are really cool.
Narora. I didn't know how to say that one, so I left it alone. We don't have any artwork on this, but really quick, talk a little bit about how these different factions are going to function.
Yeah, so I have not had the experience to go through all of them, but I think I know pretty much how they work. Your Brawnin are all about brawn. They're going to be facing everything head on. They are not scared of absolutely anything. They are all about charging down the lane as fast as possible and overpowering whoever you are combating against. The Narora are going to be very different. Narora are going to be very different. Are you going to keep making the sounds? Yeah? Okay. So the Narora are going to be very different. They're all about, I would say, area control. They're trying to expand their reach by placing down portals and then taking advantage of those portals. The Narora are going to be creating really interesting pincer maneuvers around the board using those portals that are placing down, and they're also going to be able to be strengthened by those portals and make things even stronger than before. So the Narora are going to be basically counting with almost like a secondary pool of resources that nobody else has. Next, the Hares. The Hares are really interesting. They're all about buffing their characters and also having units that are disposable. There's these things called the Elven Kazi. They're able to drop down from the skies and either heal a bunch of troops or explode a bunch of troops.
They're my favorite.
Yeah, and they're able to create like little nests around the board so that they can start flying and gliding towards whatever it is that they're trying to target. They're very fascinating. The Grove Tenders,
adorable bird folk.
The Grove Tenders. If I said that the Brawnin are all about rushing, the Grove Tenders are all about overwhelming. So the Grove Tenders tend to be super huge, bulky units that have the opportunity to recuperate health. They tend to depend on nature to make themselves stronger. And depending on how you do that, there's going to be different elements that just give you more abilities to stretch out the health and the existence of your units throughout the game. So there's some of the more resilient within here. And then the landmarks are pretty much existing terrain pieces that are on the map that are going to have different effects.
So we're not going to get everything out, but we've talked about, everyone's aware of Chip Theory's production quality, and the B-roll and stuff we're showing will emphasize just the insane nature of this. But this is exactly what you'd expect from Too Many Bones or any of those, and we're not going to spend too long talking about it, but genuinely, plastic trays, heavy chips, beautiful components. Let's pull out some of these neoprene mats, because this is going to be a board that is built off of modular neoprene pieces
that players are able to kind of draft at the beginning.
That come in their own plastic tray just to keep everything protected and safe. But yeah, so you'll draft these in the beginning. You have some standard starting grounds, or if you're playing some of the scenarios, you'll have setup that is specific. But these will all start linking together here. And you have these other smaller terrain pieces that can actually go on top of these that modify the board even more. And then finally, we have all those factions you were talking about. We have our player boards here that are going to be specific for them.
They're beautiful. Basically what you do is that you're going to have these small pieces that Jesse was shaking are trackers, and you're going to be able to evolve these things by paying resources throughout, depending on how many units you take out, wherever you collect source from, which is the ultimate resource within the game, and just eventually evolve your army into something that's completely unstoppable.
And then these plastic trays are going to be things that you use to actually organize your chips and your factions when you play the game. So everything slots in here, and just looks very nice. So it helps you keep track of everything. Like we were saying, the main element of this game is going to be setting up this modular terrain, having your base attached to one end of it, because you're not in your own self-contained zone. You're actually going to be placing down units and then marching across this pattern. All these different terrain pieces have different movement restrictions on them. But you're going to be marching down this pattern, setting up different towers, and slowly trying to get to your opponent's gate to do damage, while they're upgrading their own home zone, getting more powerful units, pulling them out, spending and using the resources that they have to try to do the same type of thing to you.
And the interesting thing is that these chips that you're marching down, you don't technically control them. They're all automated.
You control your heroes, but once you have sequenced and started the march of your chip, now there's things that you can do to adjust them.
To influence
They
where
always
they go.
have to move closer to your opponent's target, right? Your opponent's gate. However, you can do things like, as long as you move 1, 2, that is technically closer, and you're not speeding through. Or you can do your very best to sprint down the pathway.
Yep.
So there's still a bit of control, but there is really an ingrained AI and complexity to this game that you got to spend some time learning.
Oh yeah, for sure. And one of the most interesting points about this game are these towers. So all these blue dots that you're seeing across the board, there are going to be areas where you're going to be able to place these monumental spires that are going to take out units as they get closer. Different towers are going to have different effects, but basically, this is your main line of defense.
So speaking of monumental towers...
Ooh, is this time for minis?
That is exactly what this is. These are gratuitous.
Yes, they are.
In every sense of the word, but also visually and mechanically in the game. I think they serve a purpose.
Yeah, they're impactful. They're gorgeous.
These are going to be the towers that you were referencing. So these giant plastic chip-sized towers that allow you to not only visually see the obstacles and blockades you have, but also stack chips, stack health, give you a little bit more in terms of management, like board state.
It lets you assess everything in the blink of an eye, you know?
So let's see here. Open this up.
What about being respectfully quiet?
You know, at this point,
you've
already disrespected the nature of the show so many times.
I don't care anymore.
No,
just be as loud and boisterous as you want.
I still care. Now, I like the little note down here. Requires Cloudspire.
Oh, you do?
To play.
I thought you could just use the minis and have fun with that.
Maybe. So let's see here. All of these minis in their own separate holders and trays.
This is just going to be another tray of the same minis.
And you'll see footage of that. We don't pull everything out because we want to show it off as we do it. But I mean, just seriously, like how epic.
No, it's gorgeous. And basically, what Jesse said with chip size is that the chips fit in at the very top to show whatever unit you're trying to have, because you can have different spires, and their health in combat and every value that's pertinent to those towers, you're going to be able to see right at the bottom.
Now, the one thing I will say is, out of all of them, these are the ones that
are a little bit wobbly.
Usually have a little bit of finickiness when it comes to this that thin plastic mold down there on the bottom, and even this one I pulled out does have a bit of wiggle to it.
But they're mostly very sturdy.
I was gonna say, nitpicking when it comes to like the general production quality of everything, but I do know that your copy had an issue with that as well.
Same thing. Same thing here.
So this, what is this faction?
That's for the Grove Tenders.
For the Grove Tenders. Yeah.
Oh, actually, no. That's for the Greage.
Oh, these are for the
includes Greage? Yes, this includes the expansion content as well.
Because they're assuming if you're getting
that, you're probably getting everything.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Or just to like whet the palate for what you should get in the future.
Which would also explain why that box is so big, because it includes the other two things that we get to add in here, which is going to be one other faction, and then it adds modularity to the terrain, the environment you're playing.
On top of all the modularity within the game already. So with that said, let's go ahead and start off with, I think, my favorite expansion in this game, or actually, sorry, my favorite faction in this game.
Oh, really? The expansion
is
your favorite one?
Oh, they are fascinating. So
what do they do? What's
the
whole
Greage
point?
are insects. They're all about kind of multiplying themselves across the board, burrowing.
So you got it. It's Boy Scout.
I got it. Okay. I'm learning. I did not have Well, I did have Boy Scouts in Puerto Rico.
My grandfather was a Boy Scout coach.
In Puerto Rico?
No.
Oh, okay. I never participated, but there were Boy Scouts in Puerto Rico. I was gonna say like, oh, there were no Boy Scouts in Puerto Rico. That's
my grandfather was a big outdoorsman, so we did Boy Scouts for a few years, but mostly then he just like took me out to the woods hiking and stuff without.
And you're supposed to say like every time you grab it, I got it.
Well, you hand it blade towards yourself, and then you want to confirm that someone has it before you hand off the knife, just because it's in terms of safety.
Oh, interesting. So the Greage. One of the things that Chip Theory does that I think is really nice is that they include additional scenarios every time that you probably bring something into your core game for Cloudspire, which I think is fascinating. So first of all, as I said, let's take a look at this fortress. That's what the name of what
like
these
a
are.
Burrow.
It's a burrow. It's everything underground. You have like these different rock elements going through the entire thing. You have carcasses of other bugs here. This is where you're evolving, and that's actually one of the key mechanics within the Greage. They evolve. You can put certain units into cocoons, and they will change and morph into something much more deadlier and poisonous than before.
They're so gross and slimy.
Yes, they are. They're beautiful. And because of that ability, all the units have like a double-sided edge to them. Some units, for example, the way that this works is that you surprise your opponents with it.
Okay.
You start moving and you can decide to activate that transformational element, and they go completely on the side of the board until they, you know, break out of their cocoon and then cause some more havoc. So you're able to basically separate units in any stage of the game to surprise whoever's coming after you.
Now, since these are your favorite faction,
yes,
I am sure you won't mind. Scholars.
No. I'm gonna read it.
Oh, you want to read it?
Oh yeah, I'm gonna read
right,
it. If we're gonna read the Greage.
Fair enough.
Scholars know little about this reclusive insectoid race. The Greage Island Areshi was not originally part of the joining, only arriving after hostilities had already begun. What's known for sure is imbalance and disorder are abhorred by their organized minds, and there is imbalance and disorder aplenty in Ankar these days. Only time will tell what the Greage are planning in their underground civilization.
Here we go. That's all. That's
cool.
It.
Before we open that other thing, that last modularity thing, we also have the Joining War. This is going to be a hardcover playable history of the Ankarian conflict.
That's awesome.
Narrative that you can go through also is going to be your solo and your cooperative kind of journey, right? So instead of just head-to-head, this is the storyline that I believe people are saying that they really enjoy. So that being said, we're just going to start...
Flavor text?
Well, I have standard. Whenever there is flavor text, we have to read it, and this won't take too long.
Oh yeah, we're going to go through the entirety, front to back? Yeah, of course.
Chapter 1, Ignition. Papa, where do the other islands come from? Cram the Mighty strode down a cobbled back street in Leviathan, his brow furrowed at the memory of his daughter's bedtime questioning. Mick had always been an inquisitive child, and Cram liked it that way. But he seldom talked of the joining when he was at home. Mick had asked about the other islands because she'd heard about them at school, and if she'd heard about them there, Cram knew she was also hearing many questionable opinions about what should be done about them. He'd been in the middle of trying to explain the situation in what he hoped was a nuanced way, while still being digestible to an 8-year-old, when Krax arrived with news of urgent business at the stronghold. Cram received assurances from the top of his lieutenant that she would make arrangements for keeping watch over Mick before giving his daughter a hasty hug and settling out of the palace. He often missed his wife, Meng, but it was times like these when most cursed the wasting plague that had swept through the population.
So if you're looking for narrative in your game, this is what you want to get. And that's a little bit of flavor, a little taste of what you can expect.
It sets up the story, right? I mean, it legitimately sets up the story and the context for this battle that you're facing, and then re-dips you into it and takes you through this whole sequence of the history of the Ankar War.
And now,
finally,
the final expansion that we have available, and this is not the last expansion available for Cloudspire. There is a new faction available.
It's all on the way.
Oh, it is.
Oh, yeah.
Ankar's Plunder, I think it is, something like that.
Yeah, and there's also, they have I think there's more scenario. There's another scenario booklet coming in and everything like that. So.
And what about minis? Is it a new box of minis as well?
I don't know. I mean, I assume they're going to have towers and stuff that get added in. I don't know about anything beyond that. I just know that the core faction is going to be these raiding pirate bands that sort of descend upon the different islands.
Which is really cool.
Yeah, it's very cool.
And speaking of islands, Portal Seekers, that's exactly what it adds.
Okay.
There's another floating island on the side of Ankar, or of where everything happened at that joining. And this is kind of like a place that's buried with ancient relics that were lost to time. You're going to be able to visit this place and acquire these relics in order to transform your game experience.
This is going to add some other big baddies to the board as well.
Some new landmarks as well.
Landmarks and conditions, things that if you encounter them with your heroes, maybe go out of your way a little bit, they just add some really interesting new... I mean, modularity is going to be the name of the game.
Yeah. And beyond that, it's going to start adding what's called portals. There's already portals in the main game, I think, but these portals allow you to transport yourself from that island all the way back to the main board. And what's interesting about that is, depending on how you play, you could potentially trap people on that island and not let them escape. And so this separate island, this is kind of like a modular expansion within the core game called the Anomaly expansion. This is where you add like these two separate isles to the side of your board, and then you're able to take your heroes, I think, or maybe some units, heroes, and start exploring these different landmarks that are going to pop up here, and they're going to have really powerful relics that you're going to be able to bring back to your town.
They're a little bit out of the way.
They're very out of the way.
You've got to take the time to go get it and then bring it back. These are going to be the relics here.
And depending on how you do it, you might have somebody waiting for you at the very end.
Like we said,
plastic cards. Yep.
Something. I mean, if I could just replace all cards with beautiful plastic cards.
They're amazing, and they're so resilient. It's the best thing.
Look at that guy.
In command of the source, he's just bathing in the source. Look at that.
It's adorable.
Yeah, so basically,
Either way,
the Portal Seekers just adds more of everything.
Final thoughts on Cloudspire? Like, unboxing it all? Like, we're going to be playing, hopefully, some cooperative gameplay or some solo gameplay here on the channel very soon. Probably bringing some of the first test runs to the Patreon, because odds of us getting things wrong?
100%.
Very
guaranteed.
high.
Yeah, guaranteed.
I am perpetually fascinated by this game. I feel like I don't have the time I need to fully understand and dive into it. But this game, if I had to set something on my shelf that is like one of those when I retire and I want to take the time to learn and play, it is right there on that list.
Yeah, this is a game that you're gonna probably invest multiple evenings in. This is an event game.
6 months of your life.
Yep, this is like an event game. This is a game where you invite people, and this is the only thing you're gonna play, right? And you can play it in so many different ways. I've always thought that the cooperative and solo elements are sort of not necessarily an introduction, but it's a way of getting enough familiarity.
You learn your mechanics well enough,
so you can go into PvP and be efficient.
Head. I can see that. I don't know. I really have enjoyed the PvP that we've played, and there were some weird technical things.
Yes.
And there were some moments that like I learned strategy that I would have liked to know for next games. But the experiences that I've had so far, like this is for me, right on the list of some of the best tower defense I've played.
Oh, 100%. I think it's an incredible design and very ambitious in what it's set out to do.
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily saying it's perfect, but it's what's here is amazing for me.
Oh,
like
yeah.
I've always thought, like from last year, I think this is like one of my top most curious and unique titles that came out, period.
So all that being said, I'm gonna go ahead and start putting things away, and we'll...
That's awkward, don't do that. Stop it. Jesse, stop it. We're on... Everyone, I'm so very sorry about this. If you haven't yet, please make sure to like, subscribe, comment, share anything that you can from Quackalope. Your help is what gets us the opportunity to cover these games, to cover more things, even outside of the realms of board games. But remember to do the important thing. Get out and play some games. We'll see you guys next time.
Thank you. Now let's sanitize these.
God, that's so disgusting!
No, but nothing's ruined.
Get it away from me! God damn.